Good morning, everybody. It's 8 o'clock. That means it's time for TLD Chat. My name is Brent Schlenker. I'm your host every morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Marco time. Hi, Marco. How you doing? Right. Good to see you there. Actually, that's the UK time. But we also found out recently it's Scotland time, too. So maybe everybody already knew that, but it was new to me. So that was a fun learning moment for TLD Chat. But hey, you know what? If you guys are new here, if you're looking at the video recording of this later, you may not know that TLDC is the Training, Learning, and Development Community, Chat, and Conference, and a bunch of other things coming up soon, beginning with C. But for now, it's just those three. And I don't think Sam's here, but I know it's a mouthful to name something. But listen, it's what we do. It's who we are, all are as professionals. I don't care what you call yourself. If you're into, training, if you're a developer, if you're a manager, if you're a CLO, if you're in OD work, organizational development, if you're in HR work, if you're a product manager and you have to train a channel of salespeople. Listen, you're doing training. You're doing the work of training. You don't need the title to be here to learn how to do your job better and to find some great colleagues to hang out with and network with and build your personal network. And so that's why we're here. We're here to support you in everything that you do in training, learning, and development. And we do it here, like I said, daily, Monday through Friday. And yes, people do say I'm crazy for doing it, but that's okay by me because I love this. This is being a guy that works from home. It is fun to actually have a way to feel like I work with others and have a group of friends that I can hang out with. Geez, lately we've been getting 20, 30 people hanging out in the mornings. So having a nice collection of colleagues to hang out with to start my day is the best part of my day. So thanks for jumping in, everybody. And speaking of all of those different areas that deal with training, learning, and development, the talent dev side of things is always interesting to me. And we have a fabulous guest for today's show. We also have some questions that we've already preloaded into the Q&A. So I will direct you guys there, and as usual, feel free to vote them up or down or ask your own questions, all of that good stuff as we get into talking about a lot of the fun stuff from Bluewater and Chris Bond. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be here with everybody this morning.
Yeah,
10 o'clock.
You're looking good. Yeah, we were everybody in the chat. We were just talking about his studio that he's in, and maybe we should have you come back on Video Friday, or maybe the guy that built the room for you. Maybe we should have him come on Video Friday and walk us through how he built it. That'd be cool. Absolutely.
No, yeah, I could have Steve on here, and he could take you through all the elements. It was really pretty simple to put together and not very expensive, but we use it all the time.
Yeah. Everybody in the chat knows me well enough. Well, except for the new folks. I guess we've got some new folks in here, but yeah, I'm all about the video and the future of video. So yeah, that'll be fun. We can table that for another time. But I know there's a handful of folks in this crowd that like to geek out on the video and figure out how people do it and what looks good. So.
Well,
awesome.
And it's really simple to do. It's inexpensive to put together, and I'm just amazed that we can come in and create a 3 to 5 minute video in less than 15 minutes on a specific topic and get it and publish it out to our entire company or out to clients. It's way too easy.
Yeah.
And it creates that, you and I were talking, Brenda, it creates that connection, right? You get to see people and kind of feel and experience what's going on. So it's a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's amazing. I sometimes feel like I beat a dead horse talking about it too much, but I can't ever emphasize it enough because I think about my past, what, 15 years ago, let's say, creating e-learning, and we would pay what, 50K per like e-learning course, right? You'd pay like a certain amount per seat hour or whatever, and it was on a CD-ROM, or then we got on the internet.
Yeah.
And it was still huge. And to be able to pay, what did you say, like under 5K to put together a room where you can just crank out content, and get it out to people. It blows my mind that more people aren't doing it. So,
yeah. Well, I think it's kind of knowledge and experience, and it was an easy thing because I had a great guy on my team that was able to put it together. But would love to share the information with anybody here, on this chat or anywhere, at how to go get it done, because it is so inexpensive and easy to be able to pull together. You think about video and all of this and how we train our talent development groups. We were doing video back before there was e-learning. I know my dad ran the business television department at Texas Instruments for 20 plus years. And they had big production facilities and creating videos and distributing them around the world. But even being a kid, I'll date myself, back in the 70s and watching, videos or film strips. It's all kind of the same deal. We're just getting a lot smarter and better about it as a community, though.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, speaking about that, give us a little bit of your background and tell us how you got to where you are today in this crazy industry.
You bet. Well, I started out and went to college to be a finance and real estate guy, because my dad said, money in real estate and banking, that's the place where you got to go. That's where you got to make your dollar. And so I started out doing that, and somehow in '89 ran upon this company that was creating training delivered via satellite to automotive dealerships. It's called Westcott Communications. And they hired me on. And even though I was a finance guy, I was just so intrigued and ended up getting in the sales department, and then got an operations, spent about 12 years with that company, focused on delivering video via satellite. We were creating a massive amount of video at that point in time, about 300 original hours a month, because there was so much live content that we were doing, as well as recorded content. But at that point in time, it was the big production facility and then the entire bit. Around 94, though, we started running into this old Mosaic browser thing, and started figuring out, well, how do we go take these videos that we're putting on video cassette, and how do we take them and get them up online on this new internet thing? So we started doing a little bit of that. Never made a dime at it, but it sure was a whole lot of fun. And then come around 2003, I had always wanted to start a business on my own. And I convinced my wife that it would be a great idea to start this business that we call Bluewater. So we just on Saturday celebrated the beginning of our 15th year in business. And all we do is help companies get and maximize value out of their investment, and everything around learning and training and talent management, human capital management. It's been a great ride. We've got a ton of awesome customers across the globe that are doing some pretty incredible things to go develop people inside their organization. In fact, what we like to say is, what do we do at Bluewater? Well, we help companies develop their people for the future of their business and the transformation of the world, because I believe that every little bit of training that we do for individuals, especially for adults, allows them to just develop and have more confidence and do just a little bit more inside their own companies. And well, if they can do that, well, then they're going to share that with somebody else. They can share it with somebody else to develop them as well. And it just kind of works all together. So we look at Bluewater as more of almost a mission than just a business. And it's a great fun time. So all kinds of interesting things we run into as well. Look forward to talking about that today.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's fantastic. I have to admit, I don't know a whole lot about Bluewater, but I'm exceptionally intrigued now. So, obviously a consultancy, right? Level
Yeah,
and,
so
being able to
we're
walk
out.
in and help
We
them
do a
do that
variety of
stuff.
things. We consult with companies. We help in selection of technologies. We help implement
Okay.
them. The biggest part of our business actually is what happens post deployment, and we really focus on
Mm,
7 core areas of support. And it might be consulting, it might be hands-on, it might be creating, but we'll do a lot of work around user experience, user interfaces,
okay.
around content from a development and a strategy and an enablement
Yeah.
standpoint. We do outsourced administration. So we'll actually help co-administrate a learning or a talent system. We'll do a lot of enablement around that. Some organizations actually have us just managing all of those elements for their business. We do a lot of support around technology, product releases. A big part of our business has always been around business process consulting, governance, change management. With anybody who's been in a learning or talent system knows number one challenge is data. So
Right,
we
right,
do a
right.
lot around data. And then finally, the most important piece, in my opinion, is reporting. How do we show value for everything that we've built, everything we've done?
Yeah.
And it's all about getting the right reports to the right people so they can make business decisions. So those 7 core areas really form up what we call our Bluewater Center of Expertise, which is one of the things that we actually sell and support clients with. Is they can come to us at any point in time and ask questions around user experience, content, administration, technology, process, data, or reporting. So we're a consultancy that's very active with our clients, that's very hands-on. We just want them to be successful. And we know we find there's a lot of organizations that are honestly, they've got so much on their plate, they're just running out of time to get things done. It's
They need
a challenge
someone to step in.
because, we always wanted the C-level to pay attention to all of us down in the training and the talent development departments. Now they are. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what are we going to do with that? Now we got to
Yeah.
actually, there's a lot more to do now than there was, even 6 or 12 or 18 months ago. We're seeing just massive changes in organizations from the demand for just developing people.
Yeah, so it's interesting. A couple different places I all of a sudden wanted to take this. And the first one was the data, but I'm going to table that for a second, go with what you just said, because I think a lot of folks because our conversations in the past have always come back around to this, right? The significant disruption that's currently happening in learning and development, and our ability to engage with the business and understanding how that disruption is happening and how that impacts how we work with the business, and understanding the fact that sometimes it's the business that's causing that disruption for us because they're wanting us to do different things and we struggle to change and to keep up with the pace of change, and understanding that higher level. And so it's interesting to hear you say that in your world, everything's ramping up, because I think that for many in our industry, things seem to be really ramping down, and it's a struggle.
Yeah, I think there's a change going on, right? And it's about adapting to the change. I think that we had for 12, 15 years, just this proliferation, easy for me to say in the morning, of technology. And it was all about how do we roll out the technology and how do we get the new stuff out there. And now I think the phase of life that we are in the training and learning and e-learning industry is not just, well, how do I get this new technology or all these new programs out, and how do I do new, cool, creative stuff? But now everybody wants to know, well, but what value is that getting me? How is that impacting my business? Oh, I see how it's impacting my business, but what I really need you to do is something different than what you're doing today. So there's this evolution that's happening because we're seeing a lot less churn, a lot less purchasing of new technologies, and a lot more requests to, how do we use this better? How do we do more with what we've got out there? And for me, it always going to come around, Brent, do we have the right data to make the decisions? Because I think that in the industry, there's more work than there ever has been. We just have to figure out, where is that work coming from? What is the real need of the business? And then how do we kind of merge that together? in order to create a whole lot of activity.
Yeah, and I think it's I think the concern for a lot of people is around that development space. So again, I do want to talk about the data stuff, because that's a big deal for everybody. We've had those conversations before. So from a development standpoint, I'd be curious to know whether or not at one point you guys engaged with folks and did that sort of old school developing the e-learning courses, if you still do that, or if you find that people aren't asking for that anymore and they're wanting something different, or there's more content than needs to exist, and so you just kind of do the off the shelf thing, or I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, we actually we do have a group that we do quite a bit of development of custom e-learning content. Okay. We're doing a lot of work with Xylem as a tool and using a learning content management system with quite a few clients. I think one of the issues that we've kind of found is organizations have so much content. And I'll give you a story. I'll give you a story that I won't use the name of the company, but it was a group we were working with, and they had over 6,000 pieces of content inside their LMS, and they were transitioning to a new system. So they asked us to come in and do a content remediation to really look at what they had. Because this is a very large organization. They didn't really understand what was in those 6,000 pieces of content. So they'd slowed down development of new content, because they said, well, we have 6,000 pieces of content. Why do we need to develop more, right? How do you justify the business case? Well, we went in and we did that remediation, and we went and looked at the content, and we came back out of the 6,000 plus pieces of content. We found that there were only about 2,800 of them that actually related to things that the business said they needed to be trained on. The rest of it was junk. It was stuff that was still being taught, but didn't relate to the business. Well, now they went and eliminated all of that content in the transition over. They've got 2,800 pieces of content. Guess what? Now there's huge content gaps. So there's a massive development opportunity that goes on as a part of that process. Now, that all happened because the organization was willing to go in and say, well, what are the real business needs, and how do we map that against the content that we really need in order to be able to determine what we ought to buy off the shelf, what we ought to develop, and what that ought to look like. Yeah, the great thing for them is they're using on the backside now. They're saying, well, you know what? We're going to go develop content differently. We're going to go do it in small chunks or in objects. We're going to do it so there's more just-in-time or performance support type learning. We're going to rethink the way that we're delivering this learning and training in a media-based format that would be e-learning or video or even podcasts and those type of things that I think become much, much more interesting to the learner and the user. So it was all about that, what we call content and curriculum blueprinting, where we go in, you just got to go look at it. And I think if you can eliminate a whole bunch of stuff, you'll find
6,000 courses to have somebody go look at, though. Wow.
Well, that was a lot. That was a lot. We've got other companies. We got one we talked with not too long ago that had over 100,000 learning objects in their LMS. So, I mean, there's just, it's kind of, you keep taking the newspaper, but you don't throw the newspaper away. That's exactly what goes on within a lot of organizations. I think everybody probably on this chat sees that as well. Yeah, there's massive amounts of content that's providing no value. So get rid of it and then go focus on the content that does provide value.
Yeah. The looks like the chat room clung on to your terminology on content remediation being an interesting term, but it's cool. I like to think of it as sort of it's the hangover from the content party of the last 15 years, right? I mean, we all of a sudden got these authoring tools, and now the training world could learn how to use the tools, and so now we could create. And so we've been creating, but nobody's really done that sort of due diligence. It's just, we want it, we think we need it, so let's go do it, and on and on and on and on. And now all of a sudden everybody's like got the hangover of, oh boy, look at all this stuff. Now maybe we should go take a look at it and just kind of see maybe how do we deal with this?
Yeah, it's actually not a difficult process. You just have to find a way to commit the time. Commit the time to be able to get in there, really look at the content. The first piece, though, you got to understand is what are the real business drivers. So if I got a business unit that is all over me and saying, I got to have value and impact from you, great. What are your business drivers? Not what do you want to train on, but what's actually driving their business that I need to align to, that I can help you get value. So, the easy story is sales organizations. It's all about time to competency for new salespeople, time to competency on new products or services they're selling. If we can help drive that by getting better, more efficient content out there, then those guys are all over that all day long. And I think that exists, but we know what the business driver is there, right? The business driver is, well, time to competency means a new salesperson gets enabled in 3 months instead of 6 months. That's money in the corporate coffers. I think we have to look at that across the board, no matter where you're working, is what's the real business driver? The business driver then turns into a need from a training standpoint that we can all evaluate together and then go determine what does that look like from the content that we've got in place. I saw one comment that was going through on the chat about, content libraries, and, there's some great things in content libraries, but as an industry, I think we've got to force the option to look at how content is actually available. Because if any of us went out and said, hey, we just bought a big content library, and we've prepaid for it, but we don't know what utilization is, that's a really tough business case to make. But if I could go pay for that by the drink, or if I had somebody that was pre-curating content that I could just go throw a library into a career development path, now that's a lot better deal than I just want to go buy 20,000 courses and make them available, because I think that creates nothing but confusion.
Yeah, we like to talk about it at EdCast as, solving the discovery problem, right? Being able to pull in all of the content that people are already going to, right? All the internal content, all the external content, all the premium content, everything that you've subscribed to, pull it all into an engine and let some sort of artificial intelligence, decide based on a lot of different factors, what you should get, and help bubble the good stuff up to the top, just the way Google does it, the way Netflix gives you recommendations, the way Spotify does it, all that kind of stuff. All that technology should be used in the work that we do too, to, help that great content bubble up.
Absolutely. And then that really gets to be data driven at that point. And now, so where does the data come from that we're actually going to utilize to be able to go drive that? And to me, that's the crossover that we get in the talent management side. And when we think talent management, don't think, putting people on performance reviews or performance management, or, we're going to do our annual performance, or, comp work, or those type of things. But we really think about talent development as this holistic collection of learning, performance, and succession tools used together to do two things. One, how do we identify talent gaps in the organization? We actually need that data. And there's different companies that are really identifying talent gaps. They have more work than they know what to do with on the learning and development side, because they know specifically where do we need to develop people for the future of our business. So how do you evaluate and get to that talent gap? Is all through, taking the learning you're doing competency reviews, understand what the needs are, the job roles, and then using that data to essentially instantaneously go look at where we've got gaps. The balancing side of that, though, is the learner. The learner wants to be developed. What we're seeing more and more, though, is the learner wants to be developed by being told or given a direction at where to go develop. They don't want to go select it all on their own. They want to say, what's my career path? Or what are my available career paths? And if I have the available career paths, then now I can go in and I can actually be developed, or I can select, Or in some cases, we've got one organization we work with where they have the option that they can select up to 5 different career paths to develop on over a period of time. And then the user gets to select that, build their own development plan based on the career paths. But it really gets down to, it's all about having the right information and data to go drive that forward. And then from us on the content creation of the development side of the world, you look at it and you say, now I've identified yet again with multiple pieces of data what I'd be working on, what I ought to be developing against. And so I think that we look at that, the world of learning and performance, succession management, that entire learning and talent world is coming together. And for me, the learning side of the equation has the real power on all this, because you've got the power to develop. The talent world has the ability to identify. The learning world can develop. You mix those two together, you get the right information and data, the right development, and there's some amazing outcomes for the learners, and lots of work for all of us to do in the meantime.
Yeah, for sure. I do. I think it's just a change that all of us are having to go through from an industry perspective, and figuring out, what is that work that needs to be done moving forward for businesses, right? And what do they need? And as individual contributors or developers or instructional designers, whatever role it is that we currently play, what does that look like for those folks in the future? I mean, from that high level, from what you're talking about and from your perspective, I think people get it. But as and I don't want to dwell on this too long. I'll take a break here in a second. But just those folks that are in the weeds, right? The frontline training and learning and development folks who consider themselves creatives, right? And that's why they got into this. They love to create the learning content. They love to do that. I think they're the ones experiencing most of the churn and the disruption and really feeling it. I think it's from a strategic level, it's easy to make those shifts, right? And we can see it. Okay, here's what we need to do to support the business, right? Let's shift to getting more data and let's be more business driven. Okay, but then what does that mean to the little guy or gal, that loves creating content, if what we're saying is there's already too much content out there, right? And what I'd be curious to know.
Let me say it a different way. There's too much of the wrong type of content out there.
Great point.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the deal. There's not, in my mind, there's not too much content. There's too much of the wrong type of content out there, because businesses are changing and evolving so much right now that I think there's a massive need for increased development of more content. But it's got to be driven based on information about what the business really needs. I think in the past, the business supposed what it needed and then gave us direction, and we went and create and built a lot of really cool content. Yeah. But now we are almost entrepreneurial-like and looking at, well, what's the available data so we can go build the content that's truly needed, because I think there's a lot of content that's just not proper, it's not appropriate, it's not right, it's not what the business needs. So to me, that's the deal, is how do we get over and figure out a way to get the right type of content to the right learners? And I think that's one of the gaps and one of the struggles that we're kind of working through as an industry today.
Yeah, a fantastic response. I hope is anybody taking notes today? I don't see Craig in the chat room. Can somebody take some notes, please? We need to get the notes up afterwards. Good thing we have a recording. Maybe somebody can convert us into notes later. But we've also got some great questions that we'll jump into. And again, I absolutely want to talk about data, because we do have a couple data folks in the chat room, XAPI experts, and we got some business folks. Ajay, it's good to see you in here. Ajay and Anthony went at it talking business yesterday, so I don't know if you caught that, but I heard a lot of good things about it, guys. So it was was a great show, and you hardly made fun of me much at all. So I appreciate that. So, hey, Chris, I'm going to let you check out the chat, and maybe you can engage with folks there for a few minutes. And I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping and make a couple announcements, if you don't mind.
You got it.
All right, cool. Thanks. Yeah, and then we'll come back and talk about all sorts of cool stuff around the data. But you know what I forgot to tell everybody about, and I think you all know where I'm going with this, is TLDC 18 coming up in January 29th and 30th. So very, very, very excited about the event this year. And I'm going to actually get over to the correct website. Is definitely coming together better than I actually was anticipating it to be. So again, like I said, this is the building process of an event. If you've never had the opportunity to, it is quite fun. It is not an easy thing to do, but it's one of my favorite things. I learned that I really enjoyed that when I started learning how to do it at the Guild, and it's been a passion of mine ever since. And so we're doing this again. We started at TLDC 16 in San Diego, and the boy, was that a blast. We love it. Oh, Tricia, am I garbled? I'm sorry. Maybe I should speak more clearly. Oh, it's better now. Okay. So TLDC 18, we're skipping 2017, by the way. We wanted to move into the early winter months because we did want to have it in Phoenix, because I don't think a lot of people realize what Phoenix has to offer from an entrepreneur standpoint, from a tech environment standpoint. And January is just quite possibly the most beautiful month of the year to be here. And so I know a few of you in the chat actually live in Arizona as well, so you can help me promote. It's hard to promote Arizona during these months when we hit temperatures like 120 in the middle of the afternoon, and all the news channels decide they want to see if they can bake cookies on the sidewalk and fry eggs and whatnot. But that doesn't make us look all that engaging and comfortable. But there is a reason why there are a gajillion golf courses here. So don't be fooled by the heat of the summertime. January is absolutely gorgeous. And I think those of you that are up in the Great White North might enjoy a little break from your harsh winters and enjoy a little time down in the desert. So always a good time, and we're definitely looking forward to having all of you there. Definitely coming up soon, so jump in. Again, the point I want to make too is that where there's only a space for about 100 folks this year, so we're capping it off, and so get registered so you don't miss out on the event. If we need to try to expand it a little bit, we have a couple options, but I don't know if we're going to be able to actually do that. So the sooner you can get on board, the better. Again, I know some of you, let me just make an announcement here too. I know some of you have reached out to me offline as far as speaking opportunities and things like that. Again, like I said, I'm still working on, getting all of the pieces of the puzzle put into place. I love you all. I think you all do fantastic work. And so I'm going to engage with all of you as best I can and try to, get everybody slotted into a spot to engage with the community at TLDC 18 as best I can with what we've got available. So it's all going to be good times. Let's see, Luis, anything else I missed that I don't want to miss? Today's Thursday, tomorrow's Video Friday. Nope, I'm good. All right, thanks, Luis. So we're just going to skip any other housekeeping. So I nailed that one as well. So we've got a lot of questions to get into. We've got about 25 minutes left or so, and we are here with Chris Bond from Bluewater. And we're back. So let's talk about data. Let's just jump right into that. And when you're talking about gathering data to be able to make smart business decisions, you know, what are the specifics around that? What are we really talking about?
Yeah, there's boy, we can talk about data all day long. There's a lot of stuff, but I'll tell you one of the things, and I was just reading through in the chat, and there were numbers of comments and questions about curation of content. And I think, you know, if we look at on the most basic level, in one of the questions that was in there about, well, who decides what content's relevant and what does that look like? I mean, the curation of content is going to be a key to understanding, you know, what's relevant, what's not relevant, but there's got to be data that's well beyond, hey, how many people took this course and, you know, how many completed it and what was their ratings and score and what did they like? But how do we get to a point to where we see that it met the mark, that there's a business impact?
Right.
So I'm going to use a word that oftentimes when I speak to people and speak at events and I talk about competency measurement, they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to get into Lominger competency. I hope I'm not offending anybody from Lominger, but Lominger competencies, and I got to go map these 96. No. This is really simple stuff. How do we know? And I'll go back to that salesperson example. How do we know that salesperson is competent in their ability to do their job? I mean, there's a measurement that needs to happen there that feeds data back so that we know that we're building the right content. But it's not only about building the right content now, it's also about trying to determine what that content looks like in the future. So data is all about the business trying to decide who they want to be and what does that look like, and determining what data from a report helps me know that I've done the right thing. I would imagine everybody on this call is as frustrated as I am with, well, let's just do completion reports. Y'all are creating awesome e-learning content that's really creative, that really engages the learner. You want to know a little bit more than, wow, 50 people completed that course. No, I want to know, what did they get out of it? What was the value proposition, you know, that they understood? Right. Did it actually move them forward in their job? Did it help them achieve something more? Did they feel better about who they were as a person because, wow, I know this now and now I can do my job better? Those are all data points
and go apply
that we ought to be able to gather in order to be able to affect or impact what the future content looks like. So you wrap it back to curation. You say, well, then if I'm going to go curate content, you know, Google's finding nice from a website, and we can see relevancy and how many people clicked to and what did that look like. I think in learning, we got to go a whole lot deeper because I want to find the impact on the person of actually doing that. And that means we've got to gather a different type of data. I think there's great system and tools that can help us get that data. But I think there's an opportunity for everybody that's in this session and everybody in the learning and development industry to really begin to look at data and information that helps us go focus more on what we can do for the learner. I mean, that's the person that we're trying to impact. Beyond that, there's another level, which is all about getting data to managers. I'm consistently surprised at how little data gets managers. So what do we do as businesses is we go out and we say, hey, I want all of my managers to be in charge of making sure that everybody goes through training. So Brent's my manager. It's his job to make sure that I get all my work done, you know, as a part of my regular life. But he also needs to make sure that I'm trained and I'm developed. So what information or data do we provide Brent? Nothing. So he doesn't get anything other than, well, maybe a completion report. But there's nothing to help Coach Brent on coaching Chris on how to go get this work done. So I think that's more data that we need to put in the hands of managers. And we've got a couple of clients at different companies that one's a retail organization. And what they found is, in some reports we built from them, if the manager has data on competency and completion and can drive that forward at this one retail chain, they're actually seeing positive business impact in numbers versus the stores that are not focused on learning and training. Well, now that's a huge value proposition for why we're all in business and why we're doing the work that we're doing together. So that's data that managers can now use to make their business decisions in order to drive a positive impact. Then we can use the data from the positive impact in order to be able to go drive more value in recognition of value out of learning and development departments. So there's data everywhere. The one thing that I want us all to be cautious of is we can get so overloaded on data that we don't even focus on what the results are, because we go look at big Excel spreadsheets and we go, okay, that's too complicated. I'm going to go do something else over here. We need a way to be able to focus on that information as well.
Yeah, how do you turn that data into stories, right? What is that data? What is the story that data is telling us? And then how can we make some decisions based on that data, as opposed to like having all the data is great, right? Anthony could talk to this all day long, right? XAPI will collect mounds and mounds and mounds of data, but if you can't take that data and turn it into something actionable and understand it and be able to take action on it, then there's no sense in even collecting it.
Absolutely.
It just fills up a database.
Yeah, and the needs of data from the business side are going to be different. I mean, if you're an oil and gas company or a financial services or a healthcare and life sciences, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are or what industry you're in, your data needs are going to be different. There's going to be stuff that's consistent, but knowing your business and really understanding, well, what do I really need for a nurse? And most of the focus for a nurse is going to be on, well, how do we get that recertification, as opposed to how do we do more? Or if you look somebody in a financial institution, is there career development paths, or are we just focused on, well, I got to make sure that they take this piece of compliance training? You know, I mean, if we were all in a room, I'd ask how many people get excited about building content for compliance training? You know, actually, there probably would be one or two people that would raise their hand in the room. I'd ask that in chat. Who gets excited about that? It's one of those things that we have to do, but it also ought to be one of those things that we actually make more interesting, exciting. It should be compliance training got to be part of a career path. Why? Because the data from that will help inform or give us more information as developers of learning content to go build better content. The better content we build, not because it's, you know, not great content already, but it's more focused on what the outcomes are, the better off we're going to be as a part of the process.
Yeah, that's what I used to tell people back when social media was first becoming a thing. I thought, this is fantastic. This completely changes what training departments, what their job should be and how they get their data, right? Because now you can actually like look into the conversations of like engineers, for example, like they've got a room and maybe they're part of your audience. So you get invited into their, you know, room or whatever virtual space they're in, having their chats. You can now, instead of waiting for fires and act like a fire department, you can now be preemptive and go, guy, this conversation sounds like there's a knowledge gap here. All these people are asking this particular set of questions.
Yeah.
This is what we can do. This is how we can impact the business, right? And so you start to see that, and then you can start to add value into those conversations and say, you know, make decisions like, you know, hey, that's not in our new hire orientation. Obviously, we need to add that as a section, or, you know, whatever, however you make the decision to do it. But it's just always been interesting to see that as a possibility. But then over the years, just not really see too many people engaging and actually doing it. It just seemed obvious to me and you know, a few others, but you know, now it's data, right? Now we're saying, okay, we need our learning management systems to make those decisions for us, right? Or to pull all that data in, as opposed to, I was kind of looking at it like more manually, like actually having to engage with the business, you know, and pay attention to what they're doing. You know, I don't think it's really what's happening.
You know,
but anyways, I don't want to ramble too long. Go ahead.
When we go in and work with organizations, our favorite place to go in is the people that have the problem and the front line, either managers or people who are actually doing the activity. It's amazing how much better y'all know the business and the people that are actually running the business, right? And so if I want to go in and do some discovery and find out what's going on within a particular manufacturing team, sometimes they'll immediately go, oh, we got to talk to the business leaders over there. Well, the first place we want to go is actually talking to you guys. We want to talk to the people that are developing content and they're engaged, because I think you guys know more about what's really going on in the business. I mean, to develop quality learning, you got to really learn what's going on in order to be able to accommodate and adapt and direct towards your learner. So for me, that's really, really important as part of our discovery. We encourage business leaders to spend more time actually talking to you that are out there developing content because of the knowledge that you have. And so I think there's a couple of things. So one, being data driven without human intervention scares me a lot. Not because we're going to move into a Terminator world, but because when we look at that, moving into that world says that machines make decisions on what we're going to build. And I still think that there's a lot of human intuition and discovery and recognition that has to happen. So it's about providing the data to people who make decisions and not completely having machines make decisions. Now, presentation of delivery of information is a completely different deal. And so that's where we can really automate that through a lot of data. But that entire creation piece, I think it's humans actually taking and assessing data and information and figuring out what to do with that becomes really critical.
And to be effective, if you understand your audience, right? We talk about this. I mean, this is one aspect of instructional design that I don't think will ever change, and technology won't change this. It's understanding your audience.
Yeah.
You have to build a relationship with them, right? And so to be able to build content or even to say, I'm going to go buy some content, if you don't fully understand the audience, you're not really too sure what to buy, you know, and or what to make, right? Can you be funny with this particular audience, right? Maybe you can't, you know, if you are going to be funny with them, what kind of humor goes over well? What kind of humor doesn't go over well, right? You know, just subtle little things like that can make you a much more effective instructional designer, I think, when you're engaged with that audience and you know them well enough to know, I can get away with this. This particular topic will definitely move them. I can hit them emotionally here and here, but not here. I'm going to avoid that. You know, if you just kind of, create content with that sort of generic everybody in mind, you tend to miss the mark. You can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think Brent, I love that. It's the relationship with your audience. It's the knowing that audience that becomes critical. I mean, we think of, movies that we love to go watch. That director, that entire crew has figured out how to have a relationship with me through that motion picture to be able to make that work. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So they've got me hook, line, and sinker, because they figured out how to tell a story and to engage with me as an individual in that audience. But I'll say that there's others in my family who are not Star Wars fans. I'm not sure what the problem is with them, but they're not Star Wars fans. They didn't figure out that audience to be able to connect with. So we're all different, and you got to have that human intervention to be able to figure that out. But you also have to have the desire to go figure out who your audience is as a part of that process as well. I think data gives us information on what we ought to build, but why we're building it is something that I think the individual has to drive from.
Yeah, we got a whole chat room full of sci-fi fans, so let's not get them started on the Star Wars thing.
Yeah, I saw some Doctor Who. Okay, Doctor Who is cool, and I love Star Trek as well. So there's lots of cool stuff out there. The movies are awesome. They engage us in and all things that are actually real in our life, and some that aren't, which is also cool to escape. But
yeah, exactly. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I've neglected the questions that we put into the Q&A, and so maybe we can just do sort of a lightning round real quick and just hit these
sure.
up, just so nobody feels cheated. So let's just start with the one that seems to have popped up to the top here. Where are there gaps in talent management processes and activities?
Oh, lack of connectedness between learning, performance, and succession. That is a huge gap because organizations, just a real quick story. We went into one big global manufacturer, and literally in the meeting, I introduced the head of L&D to the head of the succession development department. Now, this is a really big old line company. They weren't connected. And I think that connection or that disconnect, to me, is what the biggest gap in the entire process is, because it takes all of that. You got to know what your career path is. You got to know what the future needs of the business are in order to do a whole lot of learning and development work. So they've got to be connected.
Fantastic. Love that answer. And I know a lot of people in the chat are nodding their heads too. If they could see it, we could. The next one. How is technology having a positive or negative impact on talent management? I
think technology at the moment right now, and we support lots of technologies as kind of our business. I think technology right now is having a little bit more of a negative impact on talent management and the development of people than it is a positive. And the main reason is it's such a distraction. We're thinking that, and you're finding business leaders that are thinking that, well, if I just buy this learning or talent system, whatever it may be, that it's going to solve all my problems. When the reality is what's broken is the business process. And the business process is what needs to be fixed, not necessarily the technology all the time.
Yeah, we talk a lot about it as culture here. Like, it's the culture change that has to keep up with the technology, and the two have to kind of work together. And if the business process or the culture inside of the company isn't matching with what you have for tech, and there's a mismatch there, then that's a recipe for trouble.
Absolutely. And sometimes one of the things that technology does bring out is that there are actual cultural issues. It gets back to like that gap of, well, I want Brent to develop Chris, but I'm not giving Brent any tools, resources, information, or data with which to develop Chris. So in that side, technology, I think, does some good things as long as businesses are willing to adapt. It's just technology is not the silver bullet.
Yeah. Never has been.
It'll help.
Yeah. Marco asks a question. I don't know if I still see Marco in the chat. He says, do you see integrated TM platforms increasing market penetration, or will we see more and more standalone products linking together via APIs?
That's kind of the $1 billion question right now. You say the million, it's a $1 billion question right now. Yeah. We're honestly, we work across lots of platforms, everything from core HR, payroll, benefits, recruiting, onboarding, learning, performance, succession, workforce management, so on and so forth. We got a lot that we work with. The number one purchase right now is learning tools. Talent tools actually are really, really down in terms of the purchase. And so the learning tools that are being purchased are standalone. We still run into some organizations that are trying to find a single suite in order to be able to accommodate all of those different items. I'll tell you one thing that we see that doesn't work is I'm going to go buy best of breed, learning, performance, and succession and try to combine those together in order to be able to run my talent gaps and my career development. It doesn't work, not because the tools don't work, but because the business really can't process the data that it needs. Yeah. And that's where the single platform for all of those, I think, does very, very well. There are gaps in organizations really not having a holistic talent strategy, which is why we're now seeing a trend to more buying one-off systems. Like, I'm just going to go buy an LMS, or I'm going to go buy an EdCast or PathGather that's going to take care of certain elements. I think from education delivery tools, getting to the XAPI things, I think XAPI is finally starting to mature to a level to where it's not about building a whole bunch of code to pull things together, but there's systems that are pre-integrated through XAPI. And so it makes it a little bit easier to go pull all that data together. So one thing that we need to make sure that we continue to do in this industry is keep it simple, not make it too complicated. We don't want the ERP world. That's the wrong approach. We want to make this simple for everybody to go pull all those pieces and the tools together. So I think there's a combination of a lot of that, and I know I threw out a bunch of different stuff. I'm seeing a lot more XAPI work right now than we've ever seen before, and it's truly integrating multiple platforms to get a holistic set of data, which is the key.
Yep, it's awesome. So just with a couple minutes left here, so this is a great way to wrap it up too. So where do you see companies heading with talent management today? So where are we at?
Yeah, I think that I think there's a real push. There's two components to the workforce that we have to look at right now, which is we have people that are now wanting to stay at their jobs for a longer period of time. In the past, it was we were seeing under 35 that were jumping ship and changing every 14 months. And over 35s were jumping ship and changing about every 2.5 years. We're seeing much longer trends, and then the studies and the research says that people want to stay at their job a lot longer. What does that mean? We got to find a way to develop them. And I think organizations are also looking at the fact that the labor pool out there of skilled talent getting smaller and smaller with the retirement of every baby boomer that's going on. So we look at that and we say, okay, we've got an opportunity here to really go drive that career development if we can come up with a holistic talent strategy. And I think we're seeing a lot of organizations that are pressing for that real talent, or as I like to call it, the people development strategy. How do we really go develop people again for the future of the business? And I think there's a big trend in that particular area. I think there's also a big trend in a slowdown in buying of tools and trying to find a way to utilize what we have in order to get to that real people development. Because if you're changing technology all the time, you're never going to have an effective people development strategy.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I think that's a great place for us to end today. And so I'll say thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Where can people find you and Bluewater?
Absolutely. Well, we're at www.bluewaterlearning.com. I should have thrown this up, but honestly, anybody wants to email me, I'll put my email address in chat. Feel free to email me anytime. Love to have conversations with people in the industry, see what's going on with you, share things that we've got going on. I think that we're on the verge of just an immense explosion in this industry. And so it may seem like a slowdown for a few people, but I think if we can shift and adapt, there's great places to be inside this entire world of really developing people, all the way from e-learning or just basic training, or even OJT development, all the way up to the strategy side. It's a cool place to be right now.
Yeah, let's if you don't mind, let's have you back on, and maybe we could even talk some specifics. I mean, I don't know how much you can say about your clients and whatnot, but one thing that's really popular with everyone is really talking about case study, right? Like really getting our arms around it, and as a group in the chat and as a community, being able to learn from those experiences, right? Because a lot of this conversation is great when we, to get the ball rolling, but then I always get that sense from everyone. It's like, okay, this is all good. I get it. But tell me a little bit more of the details, like what does it take, and what are people doing? And maybe a story or two would be fantastic if we could have you back, and maybe we could work something like that out and hear how it
Brent, I would love to do that. In fact, I think one of the things I'd love to hear from everybody online is there a particular area of focus we've got over 350 clients, so we have lots of great stories.
Yeah.
Some I can share with names and some without names, but I would love to hear from everybody here. You know, what are you interested in? Where's the focus? And let's go find a place that we can have a case study, and would love to come back and share that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So yeah, everybody don't be shy. You can send all those requests to myself or to Luis, or put it in the chat here. We'll make sure we get it into the notes as well, and we'll do some follow-up, because yeah, that case study type stuff is so valuable, and the stories are always fantastic. So we're at 9:01. Dang it, I missed my 9 o'clock stop, but I'm working on my time management skills, Chris. So I'm really horrible at it, and the chat likes to make fun of me for it. So oh well.
That's great.
Anyways, thanks again.
Well,
this was fantastic.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brent. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you letting me join you today. We'll hop back in and see y'all again sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close your video, but you'll still be in for a minute while I wrap things up, and you can throw your email and whatnot and web address into the chat. And as I wrap this up, all righty.
Great deal.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Brent.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. All right, everybody, that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for hanging out. And I missed the 9 o'clock mark, but you know what? It was worth it, not staying too focused on the time and engaging with Chris today. Man, lots and lots of stuff we can learn from the work that they're doing, and seeing where this industry is going from directly from somebody working with people doing this kind of work, right? I mean, this is a lot of value, and I think this is the kind of stuff that impacts everybody working in this industry, which is why it's great to have him on. So you guys let me know though, what kind of stuff do you want to have us talk more about? And and I'll also make sure that we fill TLDC 18 with the same type of valuable content that you're not going to find anyplace else. We dig deep to get some interesting stuff for you, and so stay engaged with me. Let me know what you're thinking, and everybody have a great week. We'll see you tomorrow for Video Friday. I'm totally psyched for Video Friday. It feels like we should just do Video Friday every day. But anyways, everybody have a great day. Thanks for hanging out, Chris. Thanks again for being on today, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Everybody have a great